right, so I arrived home this afternoon from a day of work to see that that Dad had bought Sequoia and I this book. It's called Good Night Trump. So we're going to read it. And it's for Miss Big Poopies and Miss Little Poopies from the Basto. Good Night Trump.
That's me.
Good Night Trump. In the very classy room, there was a golden mirror and a silver spoon and a broadcast of a half-baked story from a fake newsroom. And there were billionaires sending thoughts and prayers. And a pair of manly mittens and 2 grab-apple kittens. And a big, beautiful wall and a Russian nesting doll. Yeah, Russian nesting doll. A golden seat for tweets in a rush. Look, it's a potty. It's a potty. And a pretty young bunny whom money has hushed.
That's Stormy Daniels.
Good night, classy room. Oh, look at the classy room. Look at the White House the White House is like a slot machine. There's a little wall down here. There's the big red button right next to him. A steak with ketchup next to it. And Melania's in a cage up here. The bunny in a cage, Melania. Oh, and there's Jesus, of course. The Russian nesting dolls. Fox News is on. And a puppet show. You're the Puppet Theater. Good night, heirloom clan costume. Oh, heirloom, not heirloom. Oops. Heirloom clan costume. Good night, cowards kissing up to a buffoon. Oh, look, we've got Ryan, McCarthy, Pence, McConnell, and Corrin. Good night, bizarre handshake. Good night, ketchup on a steak. Good night, torches for hate crimes. And good night to fine people on both sides. Good night, yeah, good night. Good night, cabinet of whack jobs. Good night, White House run like the mob. Yeah. Good night, drilling in national parks. And good night, 7 sins check marks. Look, lust, greed, gluttony, pride, envy, wrath, and sloth. He has checked all 7. Yes, Sequoia. Good night, undermined law of the land. Oh, poor Lady Justice. And good night, gutted healthcare plans. Good night, 12 Diet Cokes a day. Good night, corrosive tooth decay. Good night, very stable genius. Good night, drawer of full subpoenas. Good night, bromance with dictators. DFF, yours, Vlad and Kimmy. And good night, witch hunt investigators. Good night, democracy at risk. And good night, blame game politics. And of course, we know who's always to blame. Obama. Good night, army of bots and trolls. Good night, hole in the man-child's soul. Yeah, good night, hole in the man-child's soul. The man-child's soul, Sequoia. Sequoia. Good night, ashamed Lady Liberty. And good night, shut-out refugees. Good night, lies that never cease. Good night, gaslighter-in-chief. Yay. Good night, blacklisted football pros. And good night, towels thrown at Puerto Rico. And the towels are racist brand. Disaster capitalism, racist brand. Good night, tariffs and trade wars. Good night, button much, much bigger than yours. Didn't he say that? He said his button was bigger. Oh, look, Sequoia, but good night, middle-class bait and switch. Good night, golden showers for the rich. Do you want golden showers? Golden showers for the rich, Sequoia. Do you want your pass? Good night, Bible stripped of meaning. And good night, art of the self-dealing. Good night, child held in cage. And good night, I don't care, outrage. Yeah, Melania, look at the thing covering Melania's cage. Her shirt that says, I really don't care, do you? Good night, altered golden rule. And good night, kids gunned down at school. Good night, global climate shock. Good night, ticking doomsday clock. Good night, allies thrown under the bus. Sequoia. Sequoia's eating her elephant. Sequoia, you're eating your elephant? Let's eat the elephants. Let's eat the elephants, guys.
Elephants are Republicans.
The GOP. Sequoia's got the right idea. Eat the elephants. Good night, the best people. Good night, cover up brush. Look at the brush. And good night to the young bunny who refused to be hushed. Good night, swamp. Good night, troll. Good night, upended old glory. Good night, hole in the soul. Yeah, good night, hole in the soul. Good night to the lies and the truth he evades. Good night, Trump and his whole sad charade. And there is the end. Yay! Good night, Trump. Good night, Trump.
Who wrote that book?
This was written by Dan Golan and Erich Origen. Is that Origen or
like that.
Yeah? Yep.
Well done, sweetie.
Yep.
Good night, Mr. Trump. You're being replaced.